Hey guys, University here, back for another video. A whole almost 2 seconds into the video, you haven't liked, subscribed, or commented about what you think is going to be the fastest fruit in the game. Anyways, I'll give you a chance to do that. Alright, let's go ahead and continue the video. As you can see from these pads in front of me, we have a bit of a different video today. I'm in the testing server today, and today I'm going to be figuring out what is the fastest fruit in Fruit Battlegrounds. So I'm going to be going to Whole Cake. I have a little mini track set up for what I want to race on, and I'm going to be timing each of these fruits' travel time. I'm going to be using their moves and their Soru, but I won't be including skills such as like that require auto target, such as like Dawn Rocket and stuff. You guys can tell me if you want me to use that in the future in my test, but in this video I won't be doing that. But anyways guys, let's go ahead and get into this video and let's figure out what the fastest fruit in Fruit Battlegrounds is. Alright, decided I might as well yap over this. So first off, we have the no movement skill fruits, or the fruits that require like an auto aim to move faster, which is like a TSR with jet pistol if you wanted to like move a little bit faster than regular movement. But since I don't have a target, it'll be with these fruits. But overall, this is the regular base movement if all you're using is Soru in the game, which is not bad for movement. Honestly, this didn't really take that long, but actually using a fruit with some form of movement outshines it, of course. Next up, we have TSR mode, but this isn't with skills. This is TSR mode just purely based off the movement speed alone, which is the slowest of all the modes by far. But anyways, you know, we had a little 22-second run, which isn't terrible, I guess. Next up, we have Lightning, which despite how fast it is in the anime, inside of Fruit Battlegrounds, the movement is kind of lackluster considering you have one movement skill, which has crazy in like kind of like with the skills duration, which is Crashing Thunder. But other than that, you have no other movement skills. This will make you slightly faster than base movement if you do the 4-volt version of Crashing Thunder, but that's it. Next up, we have Bomb, and yes, even though I maybe could have gotten a better time if I hadn't used a second leap inside of this clip, the goal is to see what the best movement time I can get is with using the movement skills on the fruit. Obviously, if I was using Howitzer to track somebody down while they were running to the pad, it would be way better, but we're not doing any auto-targeting skills, so this time is kind of mid, but it is what it is. Next up, we have one of the fastest fruits in the game, but it'll be pretty slow in this clip because we're using the base form of Phoenix. Overall, the only good movement skill that you have is Fujiazami because Talon Slam takes you basically nowhere. Same with Phoenix Inferno, so you're really just depending on Fujiazami every time it comes back. Travels about the same distance as like 2 dashes, which takes about the same time as 2 dashes. So overall, the movement isn't that great, but it gets the job done. Next up, we have another fruit that's pretty fast in mode, but pretty slow in the base. We have DV1, which your movement skill isn't that bad considering that it's Dragon Claw, which doesn't really have that much in lag, and it does provide like pretty decent like movement, which will get it above base regular movement speed, but overall it still doesn't help that much, and the form is much better for travel speed. Alright, one of the last few base fruits that we have Soul, which has Zeus Meadow, which is a pretty decent traveling skill. It's more of a good positioning skill in terms of fighting and like less for movement, but the fact that the base Zeus Meadow still has iframes, which are probably going to get removed in the next update, still makes it one of the best traveling moves from running away from people, but overall, Soul base does pretty well in terms of speed. Next up, we have Dark X Quake, one of the more newer fruits added to the game. Dark Hole Path actually travels extremely fast, but the only problem with it is that the cooldown is quite long, so once it's gone, it's literally just you soaring with regular movement speed. But overall, this does still put you over base movement speed with only soaring, so overall, Dark X Quake does pretty good. Next up, we have Magma V1. This fruit isn't really meant to be all that fast in general, but it does come with the movement skill of Hellhound. Overall, it does outpace regular Soaring movement, and overall does pretty nicely for Magma. Next up, we have Venom, which has 2 movement skills, but only one that's useful for this type of competition, which is Hydra Cyclone, which actually has really good movement speed, but can only be used once considering how long the cooldown is. But overall, Venom base does very nicely in outpacing the regular base movement speed, and gets a nice solid time of around 18 seconds. Next up, we have the better version of Magma V1, which surprisingly does actually outpace it in terms of speed because Crimson Howl moves slightly faster than Hellhound, and because I also use Mygo, which is another skill which gives you pretty decent movement. Obviously, you can only use each of these skills once, but overall, they do work pretty well and get you around 18 seconds in the time. Next up, we have what might surprise a lot of people, but we have DV2, which has actually pretty good movement speed because of Thunder Bagua. Thunder Bagua has an extremely short cooldown. It actually covers a lot of ground, like a lot of ground, as you can see. So it got we got a nice little 17-second run with Dragon V2. I did not expect it to do this well. Next up, we have Ice V2, which actually has a really nice movement skill, which is Ice Skate, which travels pretty far. Ice Skate actually is a glitch, which is why we'll have it placed on this list not once, but twice, which allows it to go even longer than the regular version. But overall, Ice V2 does really well in terms of its movement speed. It is overshadowed by Ice V1, which we'll be seeing later on this list, but it has a nice little run of 17 seconds. Next up, we have the following three modes being Soul, BB1, and Venom. This is all of them without any skills, just using Soru if they have it and dashes if they have it, and they all three tied together at 18-second runs. Next up, we have a fruit that definitely has more potential than what will be shown right here. We have Gear 5. Let me go ahead and transform for you. I need to go ahead and hit my peak so I can show you my peak speed with the fruit, of course. Anyways, the only problem with Gear 5 movement speed, even though it has some of like really good base movement speed and because the solar multiplier makes it even faster, the only problem with Gear 5 is the simple fact that I can't attack anything with Dawn Rocket in this test. Now, if I did another test where I set up somebody for a Dawn Rocket, I could get a way better time, but we have a nice little 18-second run. Next up, we have Ope, which has really good movement skills in terms of Shambles and Mess, both providing really good movement. Though I do think maybe there's a chance that if I did this in a slightly different order, or maybe if I started charging the room slightly faster, I might have been able to get like a 15-second run. You guys could try this on your own in your own private server and tell me if you can get a 15-second run, but we got a nice little 16-second run. All right, next up, we have Soul mode. The weird thing with Soul is, okay, Zeus Meadow moves about the same distance, which is fine. You have a faster base movement speed, which is nice, but weirdly enough, your Soru doesn't actually speed you up at all while you're in Soul mode. It just gives you a higher jump height, which is weird, but hey, 16-second run, so who cares? Next up, we have one that I didn't actually expect to make it this high, even though this is like a fruit that should technically be like really based off of speed. We have regular rubber, but the Gear 2nd, obviously, which allows your rocket to be, I think it travels a little faster, maybe, I don't know for sure, but it actually, you get a 16-second run with rubber, so that's actually pretty nice, I'm not gonna lie. Next up, we have Flame, which is actually pretty high up on the list considering the movement skill is literally just Flame Flight the entire time, but it actually travels pretty fast and is like outpaces Soru, like technically because of, you know, Soru cooldown and all that. And honestly, this is really close to a 15-second run, but we have a 16-second run. Next up, we have one of the fastest fruits in the game, but you'll see its true potential later. We have Phoenix mode. This is without any skills used, just purely based off of the movement speed, being one of the faster modes in the game without a Soru available, having a nice clean little 15-second run. Now we got the second oldest mythic in the game. We got Doe, and Buzzcut is one of the fastest traveling movement skills in the game despite its looks, and it does come with the ability to climb vertically, which is a really nice plus, but doesn't help it in this competition. But overall, we did have a nice little 15-second run with Doe, and yeah, pretty good. Alright, now we got Chop, a fruit that I fully expected to be pretty fast because of Chop Car, but you know, I think it might have been that little like bump that the Chop Car hit that allowed it to fly, because the speed that we got on this run was nice. We got a nice little 14-second run, which I'll be honest, I didn't expect. Next, we have the peak of uncommon fruits in terms of movement speed. We have Falcon. Overall, I did expect it to be moving pretty fast because obviously the movement skill is extremely fast and honestly pretty flexible considering that it goes in all directions. It does end a little before the end, but we still get a nice little 14-second run. Next up, we have a fruit that's all about teleporting. We have Paw, which actually has a really good runtime, is it extremely close to a 13-second run, but unfortunately it just can't crack it in time because Sonic Stomp, you have to get a little closer just to be able to reach the destination at the very end. So we got a nice little 14-second run, which is not bad by any means. Next up, we have a fruit that I didn't actually expect to be this high in the list. We have Light V2. It's not that it's slow by any means, it's just greatly outpaced by its counterpart being Light V1, but still not bad overall, and we had a nice little 14-second run. Next up, we have the fastest mode movements in the game, which are DV2 and Leopard, having the fastest movement speeds. Obviously, they don't have a little regular dash, but they have the fastest base movement speed, and at the end, they have a nice little 14-second run. Next up, we have one of the few modes that is actually slower than its base. We have Leopard, which, don't get me wrong, Leopard mode isn't slow by any means. That's just how fast the base is, which you'll see later on. But we did get a nice little 13-second run. Next up, we have Ice V1, which greatly outclasses the regular version of Ice V2. I'll be showing you the other version of Ice V2, which doesn't get greatly outclassed right after this finishes. But overall, this run was really nice. It was a nice little 13-second run. Really close to a 12-second run, but really nice overall. Alright, next up, we have the better version of Ice V2, which is a glitched version of Ice Skate, which allows you to hold it for much longer. This will hopefully be getting patched on the next update. I won't be telling you guys how to do it because I don't feel like running into this into ranked, and I would genuinely tweak if somebody did this to me in ranked. But anyways, it has a nice little 12-second run. Next up, we have the undisputed best base movement speed in the game. We have a Leopard with Predator's Prowl. It is a movement skill, I tell you, and it has like almost zero in lag once used, so my solo at the end isn't even slightly delayed, giving us a nice little 12-second run. Next up, we have Dragon V2 in the mode, which this time is honestly so close that if you wanted to say this was a 13-second run, I wouldn't blame you, because if it literally went on for like 0.1 more like seconds, it's literally 13 seconds. But this is a 12-second run that I've gotten, so yeah. Next up, we have the fastest version of the dragon fruit in the game. We have Dragon V1's mode, which the carrying factor of this is Tatsumaki by far, which is actually one of the fastest traveling skills in the game. It's just the simple fact that it runs out a little bit before it reaches the end zone, which holds Dragon V1 back. Next up, we have TS Rubber, which in the mode is actually really fast now that Kong Gun has been buffed by so much in terms of movement speed, also coupled with the fact that it has another really great movement speed being elastic propulsion, allowing this fruit to cover a lot of distance very fast, giving it a 11-second run, which was almost 10 seconds. Next up, we have Venom, which Venom Road carried heavily in the start of this run, but then you also have your Hydra Cyclone, which is two really good skills for movement. This was almost a 9-second run, but unfortunately I couldn't just give it the 9-second run because it did change to 10 seconds while it like touched it at the very end. Next up, we have String, one of the undisputed best movement skills in the game, being Skywalk. It gets you really high in the air, gets you really fast and really far away from your opponents if you're really trying to run away. I probably could have kept going for like one more right here, but I stopped right here just to get my run finished. It was a nice little 9-second run. Next up, we have Phoenix, the undisputed fastest mode in the game, especially with how far it can travel and how fast it can travel. This is expected from the biggest bird in the game, I'm gonna be honest with you, with a nice little 9-second run. Now for our second place placement, we have Quake, what a lot of people didn't expect to see up here, I'm probably gonna be honest with you, but the thing is, Slam is one of the best movement skills in the game, giving Quake a 9-second run and a very deserving second place. And now for our first place fruit, which should come as no surprise, we have Light V1, which is one of the fastest fruits in the game, which is the fastest fruit in the game from the length of my course. And it was almost an 8-second run, which it just barely was not. So you have to give it a 9-second run, but it was a better 9-second run than Quake. So I will give it the #1 spot in terms of fastest fruit in the game. Well guys, that's pretty much it for the video. I have Light as my #1 fastest fruit in game as of the course that I just used to measure the distance, though in general I do think results can vary obviously if I made the track longer or shorter, because some fruits are faster in short bursts than others and some fruits are faster in like over longer distances, which is all like, I don't know, it's just very dependent on the length of the course that you choose. But this was the one that I did. I hope you guys are fine with that, and tell me if you guys want me to switch the distance that I use to a shorter or longer one in the comment section if you want me to. But yeah, anyways, that's it for the video. Hope you guys like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.